when Apple Podcasts decides to make a big announcement like this, and you can't ask for anyone better than King of Podcasts right now to go ahead and talk about it. Funny, I have that name as my handle, and I do a lot of podcasting. Let's just say that I've done well over between 12 and 15,000 podcasts since 2005. So almost 16 years doing this, even before the Apple iPod came into light. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Apple now rolling out podcast subscriptions. I'm going to take from the Hollywood Reporter. So beginning in May, there will be prices set by creators who will be able to offer perks to subscribers like ad-free episodes, early sneak peeks, and additional to exclusive content. And also the company's offering a totally redesigned Apple Podcast app, which will include channels and groups of shows curated by podcast creators. And the partners on the service will include Tenderfoot TV, Radiotopia from PRX, Q Code, NPR, the LA Times, The Athletic, Sony Music Entertainment, and others. And also, Apple, in another announcement, also rolled out a revamped Apple TV, including a newly redesigned remote that includes Siri built in. So, more into the story here. Apple Senior Vice President Eddie Q said in a statement, Apple Podcasts today is the best place for listeners to discover and enjoy millions of great shows. If you have an iPhone, or if you have an iPod, or a Mac, or an iPod, or iPad, which I don't have. For Apple Podcasts, I put our content up there, but I don't listen there. I just don't. They don't make it that easy. It's so specific. Now, here's more about it. They're going to offer the Apple Podcasters program, which includes all the tools needed to offer premium subscriptions on Apple Podcasts to creators for $19.99 a year. So it's pretty clear cut to make money off of both creators and listeners when it comes to subscription-supported podcasts. So there's no word if the subscriptions will be included in its family plan bundles, offering customers cheaper rates on a combination of its services like Apple Music and Apple TV+. The podcast app has been the go-to for millions of podcast fans to enjoy their content over the years. Apple's responsible for 42.7% of all devices downloading podcasts, according to data shared by Chartable. For comparison, Spotify claimed 19.9% of all unique podcast downloaders at the time. The tech giant's podcast app has been criticized for being clunky and out of date by many users in recent years. Though with Big Technology's Alex Kantrowitz telling TheWrap.com a few months ago that Apple's app is one of the worst out there. In a move that may satiate some of Apple's critics, the new revamped app will be available in the near future. Now, for my end of the bargain, I think Spotify does a pretty good job with their podcast app. But again, you're going to also have the podcast app in comparison to the music app, which for me, I never think of going to podcasts when I go to Spotify, not because it's not a place to go, but it's also because, Spotify, for me, it's music. That's what I'm there for. But don't get me wrong. They have a lot of podcasts there. It is a very good app for that, which all my podcasts are up there as well. And my programming, including this one, is also on Apple Podcasts. So listen, thank you for putting it up there for me. I appreciate it. But when it comes down to it, this is going to take a hit for those that might be using Patreon or using Subscribestar or using Twitch live feeds and things like that. This is a big change to that. Now, what's interesting as well is, they're going to do this. And if they're offering paid subscriptions here, I wonder if they're going to do the same thing with Clubhouse, which Clubhouse is the next thing that needs to be kept in mind when it comes to social audio. Because what people are going to be trying to do pretty soon, which they're already doing now, is starting to record the content that's on Clubhouse to repurpose. So a place to record and put it over. And if you're an Apple podcaster, you want to go ahead and put your content on Apple Podcasts. If there was a way for Clubhouse to go ahead and make it much like Anchor does for Spotify, where you just take that recording and transfer it right up to Apple Podcasts, which you could try to figure out to do. But Apple's not necessarily a host. They're a distributor for more than anything else. So this idea here, when it comes to the podcasters program, there's not much we know about this and how it's going to work for the podcasters themselves. Now, I'm going to take from another story that's going to explain this. The deal is now, the company launched a new Apple Podcast for Creators website, similar in principle to its Apple Music for Artists app, and podcast producers will be able to manage their shows and get performance metrics. But now, producers must enroll in the new Apple Podcasters program. So now, you can't get the stats and you can't get what you were getting before. So now, you have to be enrolled in the program. and creators can now join from the Apple Podcast Connect site. So if I'm getting this right, because I went ahead and went on there as of today, trying to get onto the site because I wanted to go through and get my access there. And something interesting about all that is that when you go to Apple Podcasts now, to be able to go and see what's going on, I have to wait right now for the account to go and switch. So I have to find out if my content's going to be up there, which is quite a bit. So I have to wait and see about that. But now, are you telling me that I'm going to have to pay now $20 a year to enroll in the program to add podcasts up there? Or is that just for me to go and do the premium content, which I'm going to make my money back on? Which is a question that has to be understood. I want to get a clarification on that, Apple. You got to give me some of that. But is it still something where people want to go and do that and let Apple go and control what they can do? Because it's not so much the content that's going to be there that people are going to make a monetization off of. People already do YouTube channels where they just put the video up and they get super chats and they get their money that way. Or they already have ad support on their shows because of the host their podcasts. You know, for Spreaker is where I got all my content hosted through the pilot program. Thank you, Spreaker. The thing with them is that, you know, they are putting advertisements in my shows, and I have more than enough advertisements in those shows. Not this program. This is going through Anchor. So the Anchor ads, which are the only ones you're going to hear on this show. But on Spreaker, on my other programs, on my media podcast, the Broadcasters Podcast, and my wrestling show, the Wrestling is Real Podcast, different story. But what they're doing here is I want to find out, am I going to have to start paying for that? Or can you still be a random podcaster like myself that can go ahead and continue to go ahead and post our content up there, put the RSS feed up there, and host our content there, whether it's being hosted from somewhere else? Or is this $19.99 going to be so that you can go and get this here, okay? And then you go in and you're saying, okay, you have to sign in. Now, what I don't know is, okay, they're going to offer you more metrics, I guess, is what they're going to be one of the things they're going to offer. And then you can also create trailers to promote upcoming guests, new seasons, things like that. So there's more things you could do, more tools to go ahead and create more of an appeal to people watching or listening to your programs, doing in that. And also finding about embedded players and putting your podcast in more places they're talking about. So there's that. And the thing is, you had to go and once again sign up for Apple Podcasts for Creators. So it doesn't matter if you had your content there in the first place, which there's a lot of content right now. I'm going to have to follow up and give you an update on this once I get to it. But as far as I know, I guess you can still submit shows, but I want to understand what this Apple Podcasts for Creators section is going to be, where they're going to have this premium subscription section. What do you have to do? I mean, are you required as a podcaster to pay the $20 a month or $20 a year, isn't it? So if you have to do that on the $20 a year. So I just want to know about that. It's not a horrible, nothing out of the ordinary that they're going to do that if they have to. So $20 a year off of your podcasters. If you're doing multiple podcasts like us, I guess that's not a horrible thing. Still have to go and learn more about it. So we'll keep an eye on that, and I'll give you an update once I hear about it. And until then, I'll talk to you next time.